Hello, and welcome to this Eyes of Harmony podcast. We're back weekly again after the 2 weeks we were on holiday. But I'm Nick, that's Comrade. On this channel, we talk about new classic Who and kind of the news and stuff which have been happening. And this week, he is back, baby. He is back. Christopher Eccleston is doing Doctor Who again in audio form. But man, finally.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, we'd always talked about it as in like kind of a what if, like, wouldn't it be nice? But like, never sure if he'd actually ever do it.
It's just, it's incredible the fact that, he's actually going to be doing it. Like, I was so shocked. And I'm guessing from last week's, that was the kind of Radio Times
press release.
Embargo thing, because it was saying, I read some tweets that was like what they were going to be announcing. Amazing. I mean, just the fact that we're going to hear him do the voice of good old number 9 is just going to be fantastic. I think is the only word that can really describe it. It's just seeing it. Do you know what was really cool about that announcement though? Was the new Doctor Who logo actually looked pretty good in that time vortex, like the style that they did it in and the way it came in, like in the Christopher Eccleston version. It looked pretty damn cool. It's like the logo looked really cool. I thought it looked great actually. Like it fitted quite well. Maybe actually, I don't know. Like
maybe what a bit of lighting can do.
That style, I think just and like the metallic, I was like, this would have looked, good in 2005. Like, I know I've got like that kind of nostalgic kind of love for the 2005 one. But actually looking back, it is quite a strange logo when you look at the rest of, like on the kind of weird, not quite an oval, but.
I mean, it's just not this. I mean, it's not like the logo hasn't had like shapes behind it before, like
true, it had the diamond
fittingly. So today there is like a precedent for kind of what they were going for. It's distinct.
It is
compared to most of the rest of it.
Like where it is now, like I know, but I do really like this new Doctor Who logo. I think it's it looked really cool in that time vortex, but that's like a small little thing. Christopher Eccleston is back, baby. It's awesome. Like 12 episodes as well.
Yes, big news. Let's talk about the logo.
The logo. Hey, it was a little note I wanted to get in before I forgot, because I know I'm going to gush about Christopher Eccleston now, and I wanted to get that in before I completely gush. So now we've done that now, so it's all in. But so 12 episodes, that's like an insane amount as well. Like that's basically equal to his first season.
Series worth.
It's basically the series 2 of Eccleston, which we never got.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting where they place it. I wonder if they'll get, because obviously Billy Piper's done stuff
in
now.
In terms of David Tennant's, they had his series took place over multiple different times. So there was that 2 series where he was with Donna, and then 1 series where they had Billy in there.
Yeah.
So I think they'll probably go with that kind of method to it.
I wonder if they'll get, I mean, they must get John Barrowman back for 1. They could definitely do a Rose and Jack one at some point.
I mean, possibly. I think it's pretty heavily implied, like at least, like I read stuff like when this was all coming out about like stuff on Christopher Eccleston's Instagram and whatnot, and there's an impression that John Barrowman and Christopher Eccleston don't exactly get along.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That wouldn't necessarily be the end all be all here, but like that could factor into it possibly.
I mean, they don't have to act on the same day. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's amazing that he's back. I'm so happy because I mean, from what it's been saying, it really feels like it's the fans who
absolutely
definitely turn him around. He's just very fond of like he's happy of how like fond people are of his of the Ninth Doctor, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Big Finish's chairman Jason said he first talked to Eccleston about returning to the role of the Doctor at Gallifrey 1 convention in February of this year, and Christopher said he was enjoying meeting fans and was pleased that people remembered so fondly. and he would be open up to discussions of doing Big Finish, which is just awesome.
Yeah, no, he's always seemed like delighted at meeting fans, and when I met him personally, he was like really, really nice, and he genuinely seemed really happy to be there. I couldn't say that for everybody who like I meet at these conventions. He genuinely he just seemed really, really happy, and he's really warmed up. Not so much on, of course, there's bad memories and a bit of blood between the actual production of the original series, but
I mean, it's different.
I think he said it in an interview, but ultimately, whatever happened then, like what's most important now is the fans. I think he said something to that effect in like a fairly recent interview. So
yeah, I think it's been over 15 years, so it's enough time to process definitely the bad things. He's spoken up about anorexia, which is something he struggled with at the time. I mean, you can see it in Dalek. He is really thin. In that, and just he was just so amazing as a Doctor. So I really hope we get a Cyberman story with Christopher Eccleston. I think out of everything like that he never did, Master or Cybermen or any past monster. It's like the Cybermen I always would have loved Christopher Eccleston to have come face to face.
Although he couldn't do it, he can't meet the Cybermen when he's with Billy, because that wouldn't make sense for.
No, I think they could definitely do it before he meets Rose, or
There's a possibility of doing stories then, and maybe even having like a new pseudo companion, like they've done quite a bit in Big Finish for like those kind of adventures. They've touched on that kind of era before in Big Finish with the Short Trip series, but I mean that doesn't mean they can't do more.
I mean, for sure. I mean, like maybe because of a time war in all these stories, like he turns away people who could have become companions, so it shows that Rose was actually that more special, basically, in that story. And it's that would be really interesting. And I mean, him just, even if it was a lone Cyberman, after the whole war, the last Mondasian, basically, the last in this universe, even though somehow they return in A Good Man Goes to War and out of nowhere, but whatever. Let's just brush past that because I don't want to be negative. But
timey-wimey.
It would be awesome. I just love to see him, just because he was such a kind of powerful emotion Doctor, he had all the rage. He was still the oncoming storm, basically. And imagine that coming up against this, emotionless thing, this basically ball of rage emotion coming up this like completely emotionless human, because there's something about the Daleks just want to destroy everything, but the Cybermen want to convert everyone out of emotions. And that's why I think Cybermen are somewhat darker, because it's not just killing them and giving people peace. It's like, hey, we're gonna basically scrape all the best parts about you away and leave you as like like it's basically like a lobotomy, really. And I just think
it'd be part of the inspiration.
It'd be awesome, I think, just to do that. And I mean, that's kind of, I'm excited. It will be, it's literally the series 2 we never got, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm sure they'll probably get Billy in for at least 1 or 2 of the series. Noel Clarke's a possibility too. I mean, he's done work for Big Finish before. He was in the Dalek Empire. Specifically the 4th series of that. He was the main character in that.
Well, as Mickey, or as a different character?
As a different character. Dalek Empire is separate.
Yeah, because I was thinking that's different.
The Dalek Empire is very random. Because David Tennant was a main part of Series 3 in that as well, as like a completely separate character. I mean,
it's like a parallel universe, isn't it, where the Daleks take over, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's kind of ambiguous as to whether or not, but they never bring up the Doctor or anything like that. It's in the far, far future, and the Daleks take over everything.
I guess it's during like that Dalek invasion of Earth kind of period then, if it was in our series, which I just watched this week, actually. Watched Dalek invasion of Earth. Interesting stuff. We'll talk on that later, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sure.
obviously the big kind of question at this point though is if he's opened a big finish, the 60th is in 3 years' time.
I mean, we'll see. I don't
even
know.
as a small
I mean, will
part-
they even? I don't even know how big they'll go for this 60th. To be honest, like,
yeah. I mean, you got to celebrate it. You have to. Like it. There'd be too much uproar if they didn't. Unless they're like, we're going to wait for the 75th, which I'd kind of, in some ways, understand that, but also I'd be like, are you sure you're going to be around for the 75th?
well, I mean, I might just do something smaller like they did with Silver Nemesis, where it's like a bigger episode, but not necessarily
I mean, it was
like a multi-doctor huge event kind of thing.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's how much money do they think they can make out of it? Basically, would it be worth the worth putting the money in? Because I mean, you're not going to have like adventure in space and time or anything like that. Like,
No.
50th was such a lovely, perfect number to do a big celebration like that. It's interesting because it's like if you don't do the multi-doctor stories now, you'll miss the opportunity to, because obviously the actors get older, and you know, by the time it's the 70th, Matt Smith and David Tennant definitely won't be able to pull off, you know, what they look like when they did it. I mean, Peter Capaldi probably won't change too much, but again, then he'll be pretty old. That's another, 13 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And like he'd be in, I think, his 70s by then. I think Peter Capaldi. So it's you're risking not getting these amazing moments where these amazing actors, you know, because it's kind of a celebration of the actors who've done the role. You know, it's that kind of celebration.
Although to be fair, like I think to a certain extent, I mean, I guess going back to Big Finish a little bit, but like Big Finish have done quite a good job of kind of taking that torch and having like all the doctors kind of. So like Light at the End was a really nice celebration in terms of just celebrating the history of Doctor Who in audio form. So like in terms of like all these and even the modern Doctors, maybe that'll be more the form like a celebration like that would take. Like I'd love to see Christopher Eccleston, like, and that's one thing, of course, we don't know as of yet. Like David Tennant has been doing more and more crossovers with like previous Doctors and whatnot. I wonder if they'll get Christopher Eccleston to do some of those as well.
Yeah, I just want to see his Doctor interact with others. It's just, I've always been interested, and I would love for that first interaction with other Doctors to be on screen. And I mean,
it would be nice.
I think you know, he knows that the team's completely different now. It's not the team he fell out with, you know, when he did Doctor Who. It's, you know, 15 years. Probably every single person who worked on the show is gone now. Even Murray Gold's gone, you know, like it's completely changed. I know that they're advertising for a new head of production at BBC for drama. So even that's changing. You know, I think that's a Sydney Newman role for those who aren't too sure. But yeah, you know, that it's a completely different engine. It's got the same name. Yeah. It's still got the TARDIS and the Doctor, but that's it. Like basically, it'd be interesting, even if it's a small cameo, like, you know, like a Night of the Doctor piece. Maybe it depends what story they go, but if maybe the plot device is set up in the past, you know, it would be interesting to see. I mean, I wouldn't mind if it was just another 3 Doctors and they just kind of chose a couple of the modern day ones and that was it. Like, you know, it doesn't need to be all of them, or it doesn't need to be all of them in such a large capacity. Maybe if it's a story told through multiple Doctors, so it's like they each, like it's one overarching story, but it's like each Doctor's a chapter in it.
Time Lord Victorious.
Basically that, but just in visual form. But do you get what I mean?
Just to point out, Christopher Eccleston's not going to be part of that. They confirmed that was that those negotiations were separate. And Time of Victorious was way before. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I had a feeling it was that anyway. But the fact that, you know, he's just doing Big Finish is such a big step. You know, I'm happy that, you know, it's put to peace, and hopefully, you know, I think the one good thing about the fandom is that they do know that, you know, he had not the best time on the show, so they're all pretty respectful when they do meet him, which is nice, you know. And it's nice. And I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I do today as my job if it wasn't for Christopher Eccleston and that series of Doctor Who. Like it is what inspired me for like TV production work, you know. I was 7.
It was
you know,
very heavy influence on me too.
Yeah. And it's just, it makes me very happy. Just that, you know, he's can find peace in it and happiness from it. Because, you know, that's more than what I want from anything because of how much, you know, joy it brought. I mean, especially us, you know. Yeah, if it wasn't for that series, we might not even be friends because we might not even like that series. You know, like that was kind of a thing.
Well, at least not as close. Like, I don't know. It's difficult to say, isn't it, without hindsight? Because, like, I think some of the first things we talked about was stuff like 3DS and whatnot.
For sure.
Because we talked about that before that came out. But would we? Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, a large majority of our conversations at lunchtime were definitely Doctor Who related.
Yeah.
Especially like coming out to the 50th, we were like, every fan theory under the sun. It's good memories though. Nice nostalgic. But yeah, it feels like ages ago. And it was like the 50th was ages ago. Like
it was.
But like they're going to have to start planning the 50th, like the 60th even now. Like, if they'll plan the 50th now, they'd be a bit late. But if they got to plan the 60th, you know, now, basically.
Well, that'd be interesting. I mean, and it depends on, will they just have the plans in place? Because we don't even know if Chibnall will be there by then or, like, anyone will be there then. You don't know who's...
I mean, if they were going to update a contract, they'd probably either include it so that Jodie would leave... so there was a season before the 60th, so there was enough a Doctor in place ready to be there for that special because you couldn't really start. Though, would that be an interesting way to do a 60th to have a new Doctor?
Could be.
It'd be an interesting.
Maybe that is maybe like a big story like that would be big enough to just justify the 50th on its own, even if you don't properly go the multi-Doctor angle.
Or have the Doctor regenerate at the end and introduce a new Doctor that way.
Or maybe do a TV movie and have it split.
Yeah, I definitely would do a TV movie, like, you know, extended 90-minute piece.
Well, no, I just meant in terms of like having one Doctor kind of start the adventure and another Doctor finish it. Yeah,
I mean that would be interesting. It would be, because I mean, regeneration is the whole like celebration. That's what keeps the show going. So it would be interesting if you either ended a Doctor's tenure on that big adventure, or you started a new Doctor's like the TV movie.
Yeah,
it would be interesting, you know, and maybe you can incorporate the multi-Doctor thing because of what happens. Maybe if you had a companion at the time who can relatively fly the TARDIS, maybe the Doctor could completely forget who they are. So it's about going back and actually finding their past selves to, you know.
All thousands of them.
Oh, yes. All of them. Even the ones before who were also called the Doctor because they miraculously decided to have the same name, even though they grew up in completely different circumstances, which makes you think that they were given the name the Doctor rather than actually choosing it themselves. But hey ho, you know, there's logic in there somewhere. It's next season. Let's see what they do with it. But we'll see. I'm still excited for the next season. Like, one thing I can say about Doctor Who is, even though like while the new era isn't my complete favorite, I like that it's trying to be very different. I find the positives there. I like that they're trying new things, a bit more steps. Well, I don't like that they're changing things that I think don't need to be changed, and they're keeping things the same, which probably should change. I don't know. But that's my opinion. Yeah. That I'm not saying, you know, everyone. There's a lot of people who do enjoy the new series, which, you know, completely rightly so. I think there's a lot of good in it. There is a lot of good. And I actually, you know, I fondly look back on series 12. I'm actually... I'm like that. I had a good time watching it. I was looking forward to everyone.
Step up. I'm still a bit mixed on it. But...
Yeah, there was
it was
there was some mixed, but I vibed it. I vibed it a lot more, than series 11. But I think I need to.
Absolutely.
I need to watch series 11 again. I think it was brave of them to kind of just do kind of like a classic series where you don't really have a big finale and.
They tried.
I mean, yeah, that was the issue. They tried to make it seem like a big story, but it just wasn't. So they should have just gone for another adventure, and that was just the end of a series.
It's just a lot of weighted potential.
I think the issue is because when you have such gaps between series, you kind of have to make the finale a big thing. Because if you don't, it kind of just ends. You're like, oh, well. I guess I'll see you in a year and a half then.
They kind of... It's like they set up a big thing, but then they kind of half-assed it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the issue. I didn't even...
Like, capturing planets and these weird...
Really cool concepts.
Things. They're all interesting ideas, but they just...
It was just the execution didn't quite work.
It needed to be two stories.
Yeah.
And it needed to be actually well written.
I think with 2 episodes, it would have done a whole lot better.
It would have helped.
I think Chibnall works better when he has more time, for sure. He wrote all of Broadchurch, I'm pretty sure. Did he get guest writers? I'm not sure. I'm not going to say what I'm saying right now is fact, but if he did write the whole of Broadchurch, I think then the reason why it's so good is because he had time with characters and story threads to actually build on them properly. And that's why he's... like Spyfall, and even while The Timeless Child has elements I don't like, it's still strongish, like that 2-parter, kind of 3-parter but he didn't write the first part of a 3-parter, but it feels stronger when he has more time. He like Spyfall was a strong narrative and it had interesting elements that, it had me far more hooks than like, and that's why A Woman Who Fell to Earth was incredibly good, because it was a freaking much longer episode than the rest of them, like the other ones that he wrote.
I wouldn't say incredibly good, but it was good.
Compared to the others, it was his best one.
Yeah, compared to the others.
It was the best one of that series for him, for sure.
I mean, that is inherently the nature of Doctor Who. While we do get some 2-parters, like in a modern series, the focus is mostly on the 1-part, like, stories. So that brings up the idea, well, if somebody's not even good at writing the 1-part stories, then should he have been head writer to begin with? If that's the kind of struggle he's having. I think...
No, I think I agree. I think, but if you know where your weaknesses are, that's okay. I mean, you got to think, like, the people who ran the series back in the day, they barely ever wrote.
Yeah. I know.
They just got guest writers the whole time, which in some ways would be, I think, an interesting direction to go with it.
So most of them were still writers themselves and in some instances, they would end up writing for the show itself later on, or even having been from there earlier. But I mean, it's fine to acknowledge, that's your weakness or everything, but then he still ends up writing like a bunch of mostly 1-parters that comprise most of series 11.
Yeah, he wrote Ghost Monument, Arachnids in the UK, and Saranga Conundrum were his single episodes, which probably
and they're all
weakest.
Bad.
Yeah.
They're all bad. Let's just put it bluntly. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's understanding your weakness, and he just needs to stick to writing the 2-parters and constructing the series and then getting guest writers to do the 45-minute ones. Because there's clearly some fantastic 45-minute writers. Maxine Alderton for The Haunting of Villa Diodati. Fantastic. Like 50 minutes. Pete McTee, Paraxis, I really enjoyed. Can You Hear Me? I really enjoyed. I know Chibnall had like some help writing those bits, but when you're kind of when it's usually it's like smaller elements to it. So it's kind of the other person Nina Metivia, I think is how you say it. probably not exactly like that kind of intonation, but like Nikola Tesla's Night Terror was fantastic. I really enjoyed that episode. I thought brilliant pacing. The way they beat the villain was fantastic. It
was solid.
Yeah, that was, a very, very solid. Yeah, and that's why that actually the middle chunk of the series is actually pretty solid, minus Fugitive of the Jadoon, just because it's kind of very plot heavy, and we had to see where it goes and what they do.
Poorly structured, to be honest. Like in terms of being an episode on its own.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so arc reliant, and then it would have been Fugitive of the Jadoon would have been far better as the finale of the last series, because it would have left open questions and it would have had the return of Jack, and it feels a lot more finale-ish. It leaves more questions open. That would have been a far more interesting way to leave a series.
In that regard, sure, but it still wouldn't have helped how kind of messy the whole structure of it was.
Yes, it was trying to put a lot in there in a short amount of time. Like the TARDIS before the first Doctor had it was also a police box. That needs answering, because that is very... I'm annoyed if that was a mistake, because like that is basic shit kind of thing. Like,
but wait, I thought the comedian circuit broke here. It always has been.
That means, wait, so the TARDIS was always a police box? It always has been. Like, that's it. The footage in Name of a Doctor's a lie when they go into that little cylinder. It's a lie. They were always made to look like police boxes. Every single TARDIS was a police box. There was never a chameleon circuit. Apart from in Attack of the Cybermen. That's like a hologram. That's a lie. Trickery. Tomfoolery. They were always police boxes. They were obsessed with the 60s. They loved the 60s. Time Lords were like, those humans, that the 60s, man. London 1969. I think that's what he says, isn't it? 5. London 1965. Yeah, because London 1965. Banging remixes came out of that. But so another kind of announcement from this week, I'm pretty sure it was this week, was Worlds Apart, the digital trading card game. So there's a new kind of Doctor Who trading card game, but it's all digital, but it looks kind of interesting. It's kind of a game which you play and you can kind of trade cards and you can play each other depending, basically probably like top trumps really, but it's interesting. I wonder if it'll be any good.
Okay.
I wonder if it'll be free or if you have to pay for it,
or if it'll be free to start.
Probably that.
Big a concern.
Yeah.
Would they make it like Doctor Who Hearthstone in a way, or whatever?
Chain. Yeah. It'll be released for PC in 2021 with mobile to follow. Yeah. Looks interesting. We'll see what it's like. Might be interesting to give that one a review. But it's kind of it's surprising. It's like they're actually trying to push to do more Doctor Who stuff again, which I'm quite happy with. Like this Time Lord Victorious and this Worlds Apart thing, kind of we never got anything really like this during the
Worlds Apart. They haven't super pushed it. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Even though I'm following a few Doctor Who pages inside it, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
It was only reported on the 13th, which was Thursday, so it's pretty new. It's not out yet. It's this is just the first kind of, hey, this is coming, but it's not till next year. So yeah, we'll see. They're just working on it, but the cards look kind of cool, but they're probably only conceptual anyway. But it's nice little fun thingamajigs to do, but there we go. That's that. We'll see. They're sort of a while off, so probably get more news on it later on. Coming up to Christmas, hopefully we'll see something about the special soon or hear something.
You got to, right?
Yeah. Do you think they'll go back to Christmas, or do you think they'll be numpties and put it on New Year's Day again?
Knowing them, it will probably be New Year again.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Like, the highest viewing figures, like, ever came from Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And, like, some of the lowest have come from New Year's Day, when everyone's drunk and hungover and, you know, not watching TV. Christmas is when you're stuffed and you're in your armchair and people just flick onto it. They're like, Doctor Who. It became a tradition even for people who didn't watch Doctor Who. They just watched Doctor Who on Christmas Day. Just because it was on, you know? Yeah. And then they could complain about, this Doctor's not as good as David Tennant. That's basically, but it would still be views and figures. You know, that's how you make the money. You want people to watch, you know?
Yes, indeed.
And if it's a Dalek Civil War, that's what I want to see on Christmas Day, boy. That's my present. So I hope.
Ho, ho, ho.
Man, that's the kind of fourth wall break I want. A Santa Dalek.
And a Merry Christmas to you all at home.
Do you know what would be really interesting to actually look into? Like for a story-wise with the Daleks, would be if they had a religion or a belief like afterlife. Because even while they believe that they're the supreme race, what do they think comes next? Do they believe there's nothing? Or do they believe that there's a promised land? I think that would be a really interesting concept to look into. Because I mean, it is kind of like, you know, obviously they're Nazis and whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, but they obviously Nazis still had beliefs. They still believed in, you know, afterlife and so on. It'd be really interesting to know what Dalek actually, you know, once the Daleks have actually, if they conquered the universe, what do they do? What would they do?
Well, again, that's the whole premise of the Daleks' empire.
But, well, kind of. It just,
They don't have a religion and such, but, like, that is the premise. Is what
it would be interesting.
Then? Well, they just continue to oppress the populace and...
It would just be interesting.
Create more misery, kind of.
But they've never really had that conversation, have they? Like, what do you actually believe in, you know? Once you get it,
probably not.
They've always like touched on
voice
it.
Banks.
They've touched. Oh well, you can fucking retcon that easily. Retcon it. But it would just, you know, it'd be interesting to see what do they believe in. You know, like if they managed to get the whole universe to be, because you could ask that question in an episode. Like, say you did it. Say you managed to destroy every other living thing. What would you do next? What would you do? And it would be really interesting to see how a Dalek would handle that kind of question. Like, would they live? Would they just become just like another superior race who'd have houses? Would they leave their shells? Because there'd be no need for the mutants to be inside their Dalek casing. Like, because those are tanks. The only reason they're in there is to kill other people. But once you kill all the people...
Well, I think then the next threat would be other Daleks, wouldn't it?
Well, I guess that's if you go in the Civil War. But I mean, that happens in human times anyway, you know. It would just be interesting. It'd be really interesting to see a concept like that, you know. Maybe they could even... Wouldn't it be interesting if they managed to go to a parallel universe where the Daleks actually won and took over? And they go to like a planet.
Well, so they're not... go to the Daleks' empire universe, kind of.
Yeah, basically. But it'd be interesting to see like all the Daleks just out of their casings. Like they could go to a museum and they're just these dusty casings. And it's like, hey, look at this. These were our ancestors, you know.
Well, they still have their emotions, kind of.
Well, it'd be interesting if they would mutate after so long. Maybe they'd be so fascinated by these humans because these descendants, you know, it would just be an interesting concept to see.
So we just end up with a planet of Dalek sect hybrids.
Yeah, something. Well, not like exactly like there'd still be squid things, but wouldn't it be interesting, like, because they're so far descendants and they haven't seen any other form of life in ages, that actually they're not like terrified and want to kill it. They actually want to preserve it. So kind of like a weird space museum kind of thing. But it'd be interesting to see, you know, what would happen once you took over. Like, you know, because all their, you know, parents and whatever, you know, descendants, blah, blah, blah. Because all they want to do is live just as the supreme race, as the best race. But if you achieve that, what comes next? And it'd be really interesting if they managed to fall into a parallel universe where you see what would happen. And would it be so bad? Well, of course, they've killed all these things. But it'd be interesting.
I'm just picturing the Daleks' version of Megamind right now.
I don't know that reference, but cool.
You did the Megamind, the DreamWorks movie, the blue-headed.
Oh yeah, Megamind.
Alien.
Yes, Megamind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was for some reason thinking Mega Man. I was like,
No.
I was like, I haven't played that video.
That wouldn't have any relevance.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see, you know, what would happen once and their descendants, and if it was, because it'd be really interesting that they could go to a museum, like they could like be so amazed by these, you know, humans and stuff. And it'd be interesting to see what happened if they found out that actually in the other universe, the Doctor kills, you know, Daleks and is the hunter of the Daleks and whatever. It'd be interesting, like how that dynamic. Yeah, I think there's a really interesting story you could do there. It'd be interesting to see what would happen. You know,
concepts.
Just like what a Dalek universe would be, because they wouldn't still be inside their casings because they're only tanks. Like you only drive a tank when you're in battle, and obviously they're constantly in battle because they're trying to destroy every other living being. But once that's success, you'd be like, retirement. And then your descendants would, you know, come and be like, okay, well, what's the purpose now? And it'd be interesting to see. I just think it'd be really cool if you had like, you went to like their museum and you just saw like dusty cases of Daleks over the years and like, you know, like plaques just explaining what they were and how they worked.
I mean,
you know?
that is cool.
Go inside.
I think there's a few directions you can go with that kind of concept though. Like I said, I think the other way you could look at it is that maybe once they've destroyed all other life, maybe they suddenly start to see every other Dalek because they're not them as in pure. So it kind of becomes like a massive battle royale stat, just kind of determine the last Dalek standing in the world. Like they just destroy each other until there's like literally one left.
And then what would be the point?
Well, because
the thing is like
that would be the ultimate superior Dalek in its way.
But it's like once you achieve that, it's always what's next. What's next, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just obviously you probably have to do that over like a 3-part story just to explain the thing, show the situation. But like it would be interesting because obviously the Doctor would be like in this fucking universe of the Daleks. And it's like, oh my God, if they found out how many Daleks I've killed, you know, in my own universe, like yikes. Because it have to be set. What would be interesting is just seeing, because it would be so many descendants that they don't really have that hate need anymore because they have nothing to hate because they're all the same and everything's peaceful and everything works. It's a perfect society. So they've lost the hate because they haven't used it. So then what would happen, you know? And then these travelers come and they're like, oh my God, a different life form. That's incredible. That's amazing. You know, incredible, you know.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see how that would work, you know? And they could be like, oh yes, our God, like God Davros. Maybe they could have a religion. Davros is the God, you know? Or like their Jesus was Davros or something. Like you could make a really interesting society with in a universe where the Daleks have, you know, they killed everything and they've been just living in the universe for centuries, you know, and it's loads of descendants. Because as we've learned, the kind of Daleks do die and they become the sewage kind of thing, like, you know. So
it's kind of like more of a purgatory, isn't it? Isn't necessarily outright death.
But I mean, Daleks can die, you know, like that's the thing.
Yeah.
So it would be just be interesting to work out what a Dalek society would become. It would be very perfect, and I think, but yeah, you'd lose. They wouldn't know how to hate because there would be nothing to hate. Especially if they were pure Daleks. I think that's what would have to be important in the universe, is that they're pure. Obviously, they could like have prisons for like the impure Daleks or something, you know, like, you know, or something like they could still be prejudiced somewhere. But overall, it's relatively like peaceful. It's the perfect universe, exactly what they wanted, but they don't know how to hate anymore. they're all out their shells, you know. I think that'd be an interesting concept. But yeah, I watched Dalek Invasion of Earth this week, and I watched Planet of the Giants this week. Yeah, solid stories. It's amazing how quickly actually they managed to defeat a whole invasion of Earth in 6 parts. Like, I'm watching it, I'm like, bloody hell, they saved the world incredibly quickly. And the Doctor kind of just,
really do.
It's kind of funny. They're just sitting at a campsite, and the Doctor's like, I know their plan. This is it. Like, he's had no indication. It's just like they're drilling. They're gonna like break the rules of science by managing to drill to the core of the Earth and not destroy it. And they're gonna break the rules. They dare to do it, so we must dare to stop them. It's a great line and everything, but it's kind of like the Doctor's just kind of smoked some weed and out of nowhere in his like drug fueled state come up with their plan. It's like the craziest shit. It's just like, oh shit! Like they're digging into the center of the Earth. This is definitely what they're doing. It's strange. What's crazy is actually, like I caught the line that Dalek Invasion of Earth is set before the Daleks, which is like millions of years before. Very crazy to
because the whole well, kind of retroactively, but the whole thing about the original Dalek story, so it's kind of the last remains of the Dalek civilization as such.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's just it's funny because it's like they de-evolve, don't they? And it's interesting that they because obviously at that point then they haven't destroyed all the files on Skaro, but if they're invading other planets, I'm like, interesting time to do that. Like, surely you'd win Skaro to be completely yours before, like. I don't know, like it's just a little, but that's just because it's hard when you've written 50 years and you're trying to do new stories. Like, I get it. It's hard to get continuity completely perfect. But yeah, it was, solid story by Susan. She leaves very quickly in the series, like not many stories, and she's gone, which is kind of crazy. In terms
of the actual length of time she was on production, it was actually quite long.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're working every single week as well. That would have been long.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm enjoying
it. In terms of the actual whole stories, it isn't quite so long.
Yeah. I mean, it's very crazy how different kind of season 2 kind of already feels to season 1. So just so viewers who are jumping on here, I've kind of been watching, I'm going to watch from all the way and just keep watching all the way through Doctor Who. It'll probably take me over a year or whatever. Just to do it all, but I just kind of want to compare seasons and just see how it changed over time and just really kind of get like that, because I'm obviously not waiting the season gaps and watching one a week, but I want to kind of feel how the vibe of the show has changed and where I think its high points and low points were, and all that interesting stuff. And it's kind of crazy like how much Doctor Who had already kind of changed by the time we got to season 2. But I really love season 1. Like, it's still a really strong season. There's such like a weird difference. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels so, I guess it, like the first series feels really fresh. Like it's so just out the oven, still kind of piping hot warm. And like, then kind of as you hit season 2, it's definitely like feeling different. And by the time you get to like the Time Meddler, it's such a different kind of story. Just even in that whole process of season 2, from experience of watching like the Time Meddler, it feels like a completely different show by the time you get there. Like they have enough of Time Lord, enough of TARDIS, and it's just kind of quite crazy, isn't it? Like,
but they start to embrace the sci-fi a bit more, and kind of the balance shifts, because series 1 is a lot more about the historical side of it. Whereas it slowly shifts more and more in the sci-fi direction as you go through the series.
Yeah, it was like kind of every 2 to 3 sci-fi you had a historical, just then in series 2 and series 3.
The occasional contemporary story, which is so different to nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Because they spend so little time in the present era.
Yeah. I like that. That's what I like about Classic Who, is it was always so different every week, it wasn't don't get stuck on Earth, and just a different companion, And
when they do, it's like weird, like Planet of the Giants.
Yeah. And when that's the thing, because it's nice. So this is the thing. It's like, okay, well, if you don't have it connect to Earth, so you can't make these big grand stories like Unit and stuff. Because if you rarely go, you need like multiple stories to really kind of ground these characters and make them interesting. Series 1, for example, works incredibly well. And because of that, though, it means that you don't have to return as much. But if you want like a stronger companion, you kind of have to have them rooted somewhere, I guess, if you want to show that side of things about like what happens when you leave to travel with the Doctor, which is a great concept, but it's kind of been done to death now by the point that we're here. So it's about, I guess, finding ways to tell better stories. But the issue is they're still trying to do that grounded thing. Like recently when the guy was like to Ryan in the recent series, is like, oh, I miss you, mate. And it's like, this is the first time we're seeing this best friend who's apparently so reliant on Ryan as a friend. And it's like, but we haven't seen him before. Like, if you're going to do these elements, it has to be from the moment that we meet them. We have to see their life before they meet the Doctor. And we didn't really. We obviously saw like the grace and, distraction. That was fantastic. That was fine. That was good. But you can't now retroactively go back and be like, hey, he's got a best friend. He's the best friend. And he's left him. It's like, but as an audience, it's harder to connect and feel that thing because we didn't see their friendship before the Doctor arrived. So we're like, well, how do we know?
That's been a problem a few times.
I mean, yeah, even with like Amy and Rory, it was hard to understand their, the power of freeing.
Oh, and River, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. When suddenly they were like, just like in Let's Go Hitler. Oh, she was there the whole time. She was their friend.
So weird. Yeah. So weird. Imagine the mind fuckery. You'd have to go to therapy for that shit, and then you'd be locked up. Like, my daughter was my best friend. Like, and my best friend helped me date my father. The father. Like, she pushed me to date the father because I was too blind to see. She literally set up her own birth. only in Doctor Who. Only in Doctor Who. But whatever.
I think any weirder and you get into Red Dwarf territory.
I haven't watched Red Dwarf, but I'll take your word for it. I've heard it has some interesting...
I think so. The main character is his own father.
Right. That's so messed up. Okay. That is, yeah, cool. Moving on from... I don't even want to think about that. That's incredibly gross. And God, how do you even... But anyway, I guess perfectly possible with real time travel, but hey ho.
Same time to do, I guess.
But yeah, so up next I have The Rescue and The Romans, which is that box set, which you could get for probably quite cheap now. Like, Doctor Who DVDs are pretty cheap after they've been released for a while.
Both are solid stories.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching them. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that.
It feels so distinct from everything else, like, around it.
It's very
they really do embrace the comedy aspect. It's actually good comedy.
From what I remember me and my mum were laughing at it a lot. What I like is also, like, it starts with the TARDIS crashes and you just join them a month later. They've just been in Rome for a month. And
chilling,
you can get it for $12.99 on Amazon, guys. And I'd say that's pretty worth it.
And yeah, it's interesting for, like, as far as Hartnell's Doctor is concerned, just because you really don't get to see him, like, flex his kind of comedy muscles so much throughout the series. But he really does it so well. Like,
yeah,
I guess you'll get to see. But...
He had to, like, prove, I think he wanted to prove that he could do that because obviously he was always the scary kind of
Well, he kind of started that way, but he just kind of became like a fatherly.
No, I'm talking about William Hartnell as like an actor.
Oh, as an actor,
he was always the army general, kind of scary, stiff upper lip, and I think the Doctor, obviously he could be more, and then he got a comedy script. He was like, I'm going to show them all what I can do, and he does it amazingly. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it. Then I got The Web Planet, which will be interesting to go because it'll be my third time watching it. first time hated it. Second time I was like, not as bad. So it'll be interesting on a fur watch to see.
I don't think it's too bad. It's just it's not great, but I don't think it's too bad.
It's an interesting one. It's just weird ants and bugs. They were obsessed with ants that season. I mean, Planet of the Giants and then the Web Planet. It was just they were Ant Mania. I'm surprised I didn't put that as a box set actually. Ants, ants, but like with the Z, and they just put like Ants the movie.
My favorite Doctor Who story.
I mean, have there ever been ants in any other stories? I'm trying to think actually. Any modern day ants?
Well, there was a beetle.
Like, for some reason, I'm really thinking that there's been an ant in a modern day story.
Spiders.
I think I'm just thinking of like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Probably.
But I'm just wondering, because that'd be hilarious if you just did an ant box set. Do you like ants? Well, this is the Doctor Who box set for you.
Complete with a free ant farm.
in the shape of a TARDIS. It's like a TARDIS shape and you got your ants.
Surprised that didn't already exist.
It probably does somewhere, Etsy or somewhere, probably as a...
Yeah, probably. They sell all sorts of like unlicensed kind of TARDIS-esque things. Because it's just a police box, when you can basically sell anything with it. We used to have a bird box in the garden that was a TARDIS, but it wasn't like a official Doctor Who, sanctioned bird box. But we had it. It was something that bought from like a garden centre at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know who made it, but yeah, it was a thing. So
it was
I
a
don't
thing.
think it's too much of a stretch to say there'd be an ant farm in the shape of a TARDIS, but who knows?
Nothing on Google Images, which is slightly disappointing.
Okay.
Someone make it. Do it and show us.
Oh, yeah.
Ant farms are kind of cool. Watching them little dig away. Crazy. Amazing. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, unless there's anything else. I can't think of anything else. That's about it. But yeah, Eccleston is back, baby! 2021. But yeah, I wonder if they'll approach him. I guess it completely depends on the 60th and what they do with it.
Absolutely.
I wonder, well, actually, thinking about it, it's going to be like, it's not going to be till the end of 2021, isn't it? Or like mid 2021, the next series. So series 13 is going to be like August 2021 or later, because of the whole, everything's obviously been paused.
Yeah.
So then a year and a bit would be basically about the time of the 60th.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Because then I guess you leave out... So you have a series in 2021. Maybe it would go over into 2022. And then you're making the next series and a special. So you could even have the series end on the 60th. But I'm interested, actually.
Maybe. Because
what day is the 60th on? Because it's not going to be a Saturday. It's amazing that every 50 years that actually it lands on Saturday. Like pretty amazing how the calendar works. Right, 2023. The 23rd is a Thursday. Do you think they'd show it on the Thursday? Probably.
Well, it'd have to if it was a specific 60th anniversary.
They didn't for the 5 Doctors. I'm pretty sure they did it on like the 25th in the UK or something.
Yeah, but all modern precedents have it on the actual day.
Yeah, it would be a bit dumb. I mean, people could catch up on iPlayer anyway if they miss it.
Yeah.
7 p.m. on a Thursday. It can happen. It can work. They moved it to a Sunday, for God's sake. And if that's been as successful as it can, just put it back on a Saturday, man. That's when I want to watch it. So I don't have work the next day. Like, it just is nice knowing that you can just, Because you can fully, because something I always find is, on Sunday, if you've got work on Monday, you're thinking about work the next day. You're thinking, I got to do this tomorrow and that tomorrow. Saturday is the evening where you can relax the most because you know that you've got enough a day of rest. You don't think about work on Saturday. You're like, this is my day off, As today, I'm not even thinking about work. Today is my day off. So, watching Doctor Who, you feel like you can just relax and enjoy it and, sit down and you have the time to do so.
Yeah.
But say you got a lot to do on Monday, you're already going to be thinking about doing it on Sunday. You're probably going to be doing some if you're super hardworking. And, it's just like, it's not going to be at the forefront of your mind on a Sunday. And yeah, I don't know. I got when they did it in like the October autumn bit, I got when they did it there because obviously it goes up against Strictly Come Dancing, that's why it was a big problem during that block, and that's why it always struggled because it would either be on too early or too late, kind of for the main audience.
Yeah,
because that's what I always found. And if you've just watched Strictly, which I did for a year with my mum, and then you tried to watch like Doctor Who after it, you're fucking exhausted by the end because you've just been watching for about 2.5 hours. It's long. And yeah, so tough.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see. But maybe it's just the next series, and then the finale might be the 60th. Who knows?
Possibly.
I think that might be the way that they go towards it. Wouldn't it be interesting if it just did a whole series to celebrate it instead? A couple of just individual multi-Doctor stories, one with the 10th, one with the 11th. Then you could work around scheduling really easily because it'd just be one that you have to get.
That'd be cool.
It'd be nice to have a whole kind of series just... And then you could just focus on more smaller moments rather than having to come up with a really big narrative. It's just a smaller arc on why they keep having to go back and meet their past selves. Like, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
If you come up with a good enough concept, I think you could do something quite nice with it.
Indeed.
Nice. Right, there we go. That's our podcast done for the week. Hey, tick. We did it. Hey. Well, comment below what you think, guys, on Eccleston returning. Pretty fantastic, if I may say so. But yeah, what do you think? What do you hope he comes up against in the audio adventures? Do you hope it's with Rose? Do you hope it's before Rose? Where do you want adventures? Where do you want
different time periods for him, probably.
But what do you want to see most? That's what we want to know. We want to know what you want to see most. And yeah. Anything else we spoke about, feel free to drop your own comments below. It's always interesting to see what other people think. We'll be back next week, most likely, in our not reliable weekly podcast. Relatively reliable, 80% reliable podcast. Weekly podcast, 80% reliable. And I'll stick by that.
Mostly
weekly podcasts. There we go.
It's only mostly weekly.
Mostly weekly. That's it. That's how the mostly weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, it means a lot. We will see you next time. Well, we won't see you, but you'll hear us next time.
I mean, you will. I mean, we're recording. So
they'll see us, maybe. But we're not going to see them, obviously, though, because we can't see them, comrade. We can't see through the screens. We're hacking your webcams. We actually watch you. Yeah. Exactly. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Bye.